Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Nearly Numinous, hosted by Jacqueline and Rachel. Today is our first practitioner episode. This episode is a bit different than the ones we've done before, as it will focus less on academics and more on personal experience. We have a special guest, Meghan O'Sullivan, who is here to talk to us about witchcraft. So Rachel, I'll let you introduce Meghan.
Meghan is an old friend and housemate of mine who I met because she was my little froshy at Queen's. And how long has it been now? 5-6 years?
Honestly, 5-6 years.
Yeah,
Sure.
and the rest is history. We decided to have Meghan on the podcast today, or we decided to ask Meghan on the podcast today because she has experience with witchcraft and she also has a degree in religious studies, so it's the perfect intersection for this show.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm quite honored. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about this from a practitioner's point of view. I haven't done this yet, so I'm quite excited.
I'm excited too. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with witchcraft, could you give a bit of a description about what it is?
All right. So witchcraft is a pretty loaded term. There's a lot of connotations to it, but for me personally, it's my faith. It's my way of conceptualizing how the world works. And it's something that I've been very drawn to. A way that people kind of see witchcraft in the 21st century can be through a religious point of view with a lot of new spiritual movements like neo-paganism, Wicca, witchcraft. These terms are not mutually exclusive. There's tons of different types of witchcraft, types of pagans, types of witches, types of people. So what's really nice about it is the term kind of allows you to open up and take what you want from it. And I have to stress that a lot because not all witches are Wiccans, not all Wiccans are witches, not all neo-pagans are Wiccans, etc. So it's really what it means to you. And for me personally, witchcraft is a way to gain back my power. And it's a lot of fun to kind of take back your power in a very feminine way, but also have a relationship with nature and the world around you.
And is witch the term that you identify with, not Wiccan or neo-pagan?
Yes, I'm a witch. That's so fun to say sometimes. Not neo-pagan is a bit more of like a traditional mindset, whereas my faith and my beliefs kind of have a more 21st century translation into it because that is the time period I live in. So the way that I kind of bring witchcraft into my life is I'm very attuned to the world around me. It's a very cyclical type of religion, so taking into account the phases of the moon, the phases of the seasons, and the phases of life in general. And it's a fun way to connect your sense of being to your environment, which I feel is kind of lost. And it kind of like lost in the 21st century with, capitalism and a lot of exploitative ways that we interact with our world. So it brings you back to the core.
So what first got you interested in witchcraft?
I've kind of been, I think I've been a witch ever since I came out of the womb, essentially. I've always been drawn ever since I was little to like witches in movies, witches in books. I've just loved the aesthetic. Like my favorite movie when I was a kid was Kiki's Delivery Service. I was that crazy Harry Potter girl. I actually broke a VHS of The Philosopher's Stone when I was 3 years old because I watched it so much. Yeah. And like, it's just kind of always been a part of me. I drew myself as a witch as a little girl a lot. Even when I was 6 years old, I begged my parents for a black cat, and we got one. His name was Pippin, and he's my buddy for 13 years. And I also kind of was born into it as well. Like what you can, I guess you could consider, I could consider myself a hereditary witch in the sense that I had a witchy mentor growing up and to kind of introduce me to this aspect. I had a matriarchal figure, my aunt, and she's so cool. And I always really admired her, and I still do, because she just had this presence and this sort of magical allure. And I was like, why is she so powerful? Why, like, what is it about her? She always wore like long flowy gowns and read tarot cards and just kind of commanded the presence in the room. And that, I guess, that archetype of the witch really drew me in, and I was able to kind of translate that and find my own power and my sense of self. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to kind of explore it as much in my childhood / teenage years, because I did go to a Catholic high school, and we know the relationships between Catholics and witches. So that was kind of, put aside, but I was able to explore it and start my journey, I would say, in 11th grade, when I did a project on witchcraft that I had to get very special permission to do it, actually, sorry. And it just kind of exploded from there. And then once I was able to kind of go into my early 20s and make decisions on my own in my spirituality, and through my religious studies degree, it just kind of exploded, and I was able to embrace it a lot more. So yeah, and I mean, like, witches are cool. I want to be cool.
So you mentioned your aunt. That raises a question for me that I've always wondered, and I think a lot of other people have wondered. Is witchcraft a solitary or like a group practice? Can you do either or? Did you practice with your aunt?
So witchcraft it's really, in the modern sense, it can be whatever you want to be, and that really attracts me to this faith, in the sense I don't do well with rules. And so traditional religions and all of their customs and rules seem a bit suffocating. So it's really nice with this. I'm able to make it what I want to be. There are witches who definitely practice together, and there's a lot of power in numbers, which is nice. And women getting together and, taking back their power in that sense is great. And that would be like a coven situation. Me personally, I work alone. My faith and my spirituality has been a very solitary practice, so I would be considered a solitary witch. I never really practiced with my aunt, but she was the one who was able to pass down the wisdom and the knowledge and the traditions to help me formulate my own path. I would be open to it. I'd love to join a coven, but so far it's been by myself.
Are there any particular holidays that you observe, or any practices that you partake in?
Yeah. So for my conceptualization and what I follow is it's found predominantly in the Wiccan faith. We have this thing called like the Wheel of the Year, and it emphasizes the really big like cyclical nature of this faith and the cyclical nature of the earth. So a lot of our practices are earth-based and attuned to the environment around us, like I said. So for me, I follow the Wheel of the Year, and there's about 8 different points in the year in which would be like, they would be kind of the Sabbaths, I guess. And they all kind of have their own little, I don't say personality, because it links to kind of the way that we conceptualize Mother Earth. The way I see the earth is she goes through her 3 cycles of the year, starting out in the spring when she's the maiden, the summer, the mother, when all the fruits of the harvest and ready to produce and ready to have that feminine sort of creative energy. And then there's the crone, which is the older woman, and that's the winter. So each of the different Sabbaths of the year kind of point to a different phase of her life. And there's a lot of different ways you can celebrate these. They all are kind of attuned to the solstice and the equinoxes. So like the summer and the winter solstice, the first day of spring, first day of fall. Then there's a couple of the little ones in between that help sort of reflect your own personal journeys, and you can, do whatever you want with them. Essentially, you can have big feasts on the summer solstice. You can run around in the flowers and in the sun. You can have a Yule log at Yule. It really is up to you and how you're feeling in the moment. I like to have food. I like to make food on these holidays. So stuff like fruits and vegetables, or like foods that are in season, are really, really good. But they're a lot of fun. And you know what? It's pretty forgiving. So if you forget, or if you're not prepared, don't worry about it. You can probably just, take time to reflect on those days, or you can go full out. And that's what I really like about this space, is it gives you a lot of leeway.
Yeah, I really like that. It's like it's up to you and how you can be authentic to you in your own practice. You can kind of take what you want from it.
Yeah, it's really nice because it's eclectic, and embracing knowledges and truths from sort of every type of, I guess, witchcraft movement is good. Be very careful with what you choose, because some practices you need to do your research if you're especially going to venture off into other sort of I don't want to say race faith, but sort of other different cultures faiths. So if you're going to be able to do that, do your research. Some practices are closed, like sage. White sage is a closed practice. Do not buy white sage. This is closed practice. So you can kind of modify it. And if you're going to go down that route, I would say very much first do research into your own cultural pre-Christian tradition. So for me, that would be Celtic and Irish traditions. And then if you want to venture off into other ones, do your research, and you can incorporate those into your faith as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You can do whatever you want with it, as long as you harm none. There is a Wiccan creed, and this is what I was taught when I was first going into my practice, is that do whatever you want, do whatever is good for you, as long as it harms nobody. So it's got a nice karmic twist to it. So you can do your spells, you can do your manifestations, you can do anything in your life, as long as it doesn't affect anybody else. So that would include curses or hexes. That's imposing will onto other people. And they believe that whatever you put out into the universe will come back to you either 3 times in magnitude or 3 times consecutively. Go ahead and curse that person, but be warned, you might be getting what you dished out. And that was really, really honed in and basically beaten into my head as a young kid.
One of the things that I'm interested in learning about more, because of my research in eco-spirituality, is about how witches and witchcraft interacts with the environment and ecology. So I would love it if you could speak on that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I have found in my spiritual journey a lot is a lot of these movements that go back to pre-Christian traditions are very in tune with the land. And for me personally, I am a person who just gravitates towards being outdoors. I'm a very active person. A lot of my jobs, a lot of my hobbies have always been outdoors in nature. And it's where I have always felt a sense of calm, a sense of solace, and a sense of purpose, is the natural world around me. I have been very concerned with ecological activism. Ever since I was small, I could see the impact of humans on the environment, and it's always just kind of been a thorn in my side, seeing the way that we treat the earth. And what's nice about the witchcraft and what sort of lured me to it is the fact that we worship the ground and the space around us. Because if you think about it, our earth is as amazing as possible. And if the fact that it can support and create life, and all of it can be in harmony and union with each other when done right, I just don't see how that couldn't create a sense of awe and mysticism and just fascination. So a lot of the witchcraft movements, like the Wiccan witchcraft movements, are, since we do worship the earth, it's naturally, a lot of witches are naturally inclined towards eco activism and taking care of the earth that we step on, because it is our creator for all intents and purposes. Literally, you are made, the atoms and particles inside your body are the stuff that are the beautiful stars in our night sky are made up of as well. So if you take that point of view, we are the earth. So we need to take care of it, but we are also one with the earth, and we are the same thing of it. So it just made sense for me to find a sense of spirituality, a sense of purpose in life, a sense of why are we on this earth? It's because we are a part of this earth. And the earth is so pretty. We need to take care of Mama Earth. We've been so mean to her for so long.
Agreed.
Yeah, and a lot of the rituals and a lot of the mechanisms in which we express our faith have to do with the elements of the earth. Literally burying tinctures into the ground to create your manifestations into fruition is a huge thing. Saying thank you to the sun and the stars for allowing time for rest and then waking you up in the morning, and just taking time to breathe in fresh mountain air and really go back to where you came from all the distractions of 21st century capitalist, modernization and the concrete jungles that we live in. I find myself, if I get really, really overwhelmed with whatever's going on in the world, like all of the news updates on social media, all of, what's the day-to-day bustle of information, the technological age, if I get really overwhelmed by that, which happens a lot, I just retreat back into nature. And it's hard to describe the sense of zen, the sense of fulfillment, the sense of like awe that I get being in nature. And I've just felt that has been, that's like the only true form of magic that we can find is in nature. So I've always just felt a very good connection, and a lot of witches feel the same way as well. And so, yeah. And another big sort of form, like leading into that, is that not necessarily gender, but sort of male and female energies do exist in the universe. And I've seen it. No matter what you present as, what you were born as, you can identify with this sort of yin and yang energy. And Mama Earth, she's got the feminine energy. She is literally the woman, the female energy, the female body creates out of nothing. And if that's not magical, I don't know what else is. And our earth has been doing that for as long as it's been around. It's been able to create so many different, like diverse species, diverse plants, all out of seemingly nothing. So the earth itself has this very feminine energy, but unfortunately with capitalism, with patriarchy, with heteronormativity, we've been kind of destroying her and having an imbalance of the male and female energy. All the fires that have been happening, a lot of hustle and bustle of hustle culture could arguably be very male. So what's nice about witchcraft is it brings back the emphasis on the balance of both. And inherently, witchcraft is a very feminist movement, and I am a hardcore feminist, so I think it really, really links in with that.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed in spiritualities and religions across the world, there is this really strong connection between the feminine energy and nature. It's really cool to see that that is true for witchcraft as well.
Yeah, exactly. And with witchcraft, like the history of the term witch cannot be separated from the modern movement. And I think that it's a very pivotal time to be a witch, because we're seeing the impacts and we're seeing the detriment that, unfortunately, the structure of our society has created.
There's a long history of witches in which witches have been portrayed as participating in dark magic, and this has resulted in, as we know, the persecution of witches, most often female, in the European witch trials, for example. Would you like to talk a bit about that history and the importance it has been on the development of witchcraft that you practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we look at the witch that's been portrayed sort of modern recently, and the witch that everybody knows, she's got many faces, and it depends on, who and where she's coming from. The witch is at its core, the witch is an unapologetic woman. It is a woman who is in her power and who has a sense of self that intimidates those around her. We've had a lot of matriarchal societies and throughout history, and powerful women have been found everywhere. But unfortunately, the witch sort of became an archetype in the patriarchal systems that Catholicism and other, religions came in through colonialism. And when the world was kind of switching to a more capitalist, male-dominated society, and this is where we find women of power, women of agency, and women of wisdom didn't have a place. Like, they don't have a place in a society run by those structures. So the term witch was very much used as a weapon against a woman who threatened any of the facets of these structures. A woman who doesn't need the authority of a man, a woman who is knowledgeable in her own sense of self, a woman who is knowledgeable in the world around her, and who has the secrets and the mysticisms of the way of life. But if we're living in a society that, is pressing maybe Catholic doctrine, any other form of knowledge is unacceptable. And that is when that term can be used as a weapon. And unfortunately, due to patriarchal systems, a lot of the victims of the witch, the term witch, have been women. And it was, it just breaks my heart, because we don't know a definite number of how many women have died due to that accusation, but it's huge. And it's been seen predominantly in European witch trials and the witch trials in Salem, but there's kind of been a form of it everywhere. So the history of the witch is a loaded term and has been a loaded term for a really long time. It's been used as a weapon against a powerful, knowledgeable, wise woman who has a sense of agency. But I think what's really cool is that modern witchcraft movements are reclaiming that title. And, magic and spirituality aside, from a feminist point of view, being called a witch means that you're a woman who is unapologetically herself. And I love this quote. I don't know where it's from, but the biggest threat to the patriarchy is a witch, a slut, and a feminist. And the women who like to follow, modern witchcraft movements, at least the ones that I've surrounded myself with, really atone to that. So being a witch now is, calling yourself now is, or witch now would be honestly just taking back your power. And it just pains me to hear that, so many women, because the term is a very feminine term, have died because of being called a witch. And the fact that a woman with such, power can cause, such insecurities and such threat is quite cool. So being able to take back that term from a very bloody, sad history is my modern ode to feminism. And some definitions of the witch, portray her as an old hag who's something to be feared of, who has ill intent. But another little definition of her is a mysterious, alluring woman who has been a temptress, who tempts the male sex. And so she's not all that bad. She's got a very attractive quality to her as well, an attractive power. And it's nice to kind of take that back, essentially, and be that sexy witch that everybody wants to have around.
Historically, compared to how we've tended to view witches as evil or troublemakers, that sort of thing, it seems like these days that people have a better view of them. I mean, you see them in TV, you see them in movies, in books, and all that. Do you think that there's overall a better understanding of what witchcraft is? And do you think it's made a positive impact on society?
I would really hope that it does. I still feel as though being called a witch is still a loaded term. Like, first of all, sometimes it's not taken seriously. They say, "Oh, I'm a witch," and some people tend to be very interested in it, and other people are like, "Oh, haha, she just was obsessed with Harry Potter as a kid. Like, she thinks that she can twiddle her fingers and sparks will come out." But I think the positive impact it could have is just allowing those who've been marginalized by the system that we live in to kind of gain back a power in a very countercultural way. A lot of the witchcraft movements, like the modern witchcraft movements, like with Gerald Gardner and Alexandrian witches, did kind of come into fruition in the 60s, back when, civil rights movements were coming out. So they all have a very impactful social impact in itself. It's very inherent in that way. But I would love for maybe a bit more exposure to what a witch could be. I think it could be very impactful, especially with the ecological framework that it can bring, as well as the feminist point of view. But the fact that it has an association with a supposedly mythical creature, a creature of fantasy, it may not be taken as seriously because they're like, "Oh, magic's not real." I beg to differ. Everyone's got a little bit of magic in themselves. And just because I can't move something from across the room doesn't mean I don't have the power and the will to make stuff happen in my own real life. The aspects that I wish could be brought into the general public more from witchcraft would be a sense of agency, a sense of self, the confidence to unapologetically be yourself, but also the ecological teachings and your relationship with the ground itself would be a great sort of facet of the religion to be brought into the mainstream, which I hope will gain popularity in the foreseeable future.
So Megan, what does a modern witch look like? What are her daily practices?
Oh, I love this question. So modern witches can come in all shapes and sizes, different colors, different heights, different genders, and everything. It's really like what you feel to your core. So for myself, my modern sort of daily life as a witch is just can come in like little things and big things. For a little thing that I do every day would be putting the spices in my cup of coffee. I put nutmeg, cardamom, and cinnamon in my coffee every day, and I kind of put little intentions of what I want to bring into my day through that little morning ritual. Cinnamon has to do with luck, nutmeg has to do with connection and harmony, and cardamom just tastes really, really good. And fun fact though, those spices that have to do with autumn and, you know, sort of the pumpkin spices all kind of have a spiritual, a magical meaning of warding off evil. So if anybody that says that they don't like pumpkin spice, I think the spices are working. No, that's mean. I'm joking. So like that's just like a little thing, or going for a walk in nature. I live in Montreal, and we have a big Mount Royal Park, and if I really want to kind of connect with the spirit and sort of go to my own church, I'll just take a huge hike up in the mountain, look at the colors, look at how the seasons are changing, and noticing what's different. Also, to bring witchcraft into like your daily life is just unapologetically being yourself. And if that means walking down the street with like badass witchy makeup, black lipstick, awesome like shoes, and dressing nicely, that's also a lot of fun. I love to dress up witchy. You guys are catching me in a great month, because the month of October, I forgot a witch outfit for every day of October. So that's a lot of fun. As well as kind of like taking account the moon cycles. I really like to work with the moon in my practice. So if anything in my daily life, if I want to kind of manifest some personal growth, manifest money, I'll check in to see what the moon phases are, and also take into account which astrological sign they're in, because as those energies, you want to work with those energies, you don't want to work with those energies. But also just kind of being in awe with what's around you. And it's always in the back of my mind and everything that I do. So it's kind of hard to pick out what I do normally. But yeah, like crystals are fun, leaving those out and having your bra full of crystals. All the amount of times that I've like gotten undressed at the end of the day and I have like 6 crystals just like fly out of my clothes is a lot of fun. But like, even if you just need like an extra boost, an extra reminder of what you need to do with your day, you can put a crystal to help manifest that energy. I burn Palo Santo in my apartment if I just want to clear the negative gunk off of my day. And just taking care of yourself. And what's nice with this religion is like, if I miss a Sabbath, if I miss a full moon, whoop-de-doo, like it's not that big of a deal. I don't really have a deity looking down at me that's going to shun me for that. But there are deities that will look down at you and judge you for what your decisions. I do have to say that.
Yeah, tell me a little about deities.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So deities are fun because they're kind of like energies and higher powers that you can work with. It's like a humanoid manifestation of an energy you want to pertain to. And if you talk to different witches, different deities sort of attune to them, and you could work with them by calling on their name intentionally and giving offerings to them as like directly. So my deity that kind of presented herself to me, and the one that I've been sort of drawn to ever since I was a young child, is Artemis. I've got a really cool story actually of what I think was a situation where she reached out to me. This summer, when I was tree planting out in BC, we had a day where I maybe was planting trees for 30 minutes. I'd say so, yes. I choose to kind of let those be, and I don't try and let them affect me as much, because taking the identity of a mythical creature can sometimes get raised eyebrows, definitely. And sort of, I find the term itself, calling yourself a witch, can be a little bit intimidating for some people. They kind of may look at you funny and be like, oh, okay, so she thinks she's got a bit more power than she's used to. I'm like, well, good if you think that, because that's what I'm trying to put across. But the only word that was on this pen was Artemis.
Oh, I'm a witch.
People kind of put the puzzle together.
And
look at my traditionally, Artemis is she is she's the huntress, and she's the forever maiden. She is the counterpart to Apollo. That's her twin brother, and she is the goddess of the moon. And I have always been so attracted to the moon. I have tattooed on my tarot cards for me. It's been a sense of awe for me. Generally, it's gotten like a pretty good, and her stick is she's the goddess of everything wild. People seem to be very interested in it. In the woods. I do have one on her own situation that did kind of like stick out in my head. I like to, and it came after a breakup. So I'm sorry for turning into this type of podcast, but I'll go ahead with that. I decided to part ways with a person, as one does, and they knew my identity as a witch, and this person kind of like, not necessarily like belittled me for it. She's a cool lady, and I like to call upon her if I'm ever kind of in a situation where I need some guidance.
So did you grow up seeing witches on TV and in movies, and did that influence you in any way?
100% yes. I love anything to do with witches and the witches' stories. They have so much variability into them, and it's so much fun to kind of see what form she can take. And just naturally as a kid, I had the affinity for witch stories and witch movies and anything like that.
What are your favorites?
My favorites? Hermione Granger has been a huge sort of role model and archetype in my life. She is a force to be reckoned with, and I think Emma Watson did a great job of portraying her. My all-time favorite portrayal of the witch would be Alice Hoffman, her novels, Practical Magic, The Lessons of Magic, and The Rules of Magic. It also was a movie. It came out as a movie in the 90s with Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman, and it's just so wholesome. It's my favorite, and it's the one that was passed, like my aunt passed down these books to me, and there's a lot of great little knowledge in these books about how these women deal with their daily lives. Like, magic isn't a great theme of it. It's translated into a very like modern way, but it's a great story in looking in the reality of how the relationships between women, familiar relationships or friend relationships, really influence each other. That's a good one. This is a love-hate relationship, but The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Love-hate relationship with that one.
Why is that?
I binged it completely. The aesthetic, the visuals, the kind of witchy atmosphere is so great. I love everything about it. You know, the outfits, the house that Sabrina lives in, her kids. It was just very entertaining. But dang it, they freaking missed the mark on the actual witchcraft part, and that makes me really angry. They missed it to the point that it resulted in a lawsuit with Netflix.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the witches in Sabrina are basically an inverse of Christianity. A lot of their faith and their ritual talking about like the black sacrament, the black baptism. I'm like, guys, come on, that's not really what this is. And you're just perpetuating the like devil relationship, which is what they decided to choose, but there's actually no devil in our faith. So the whole conception of like witches are mistresses of the devil is quite false. They also used the statue of Beelzebub that was very sacred to the Church of Satan, and they used it in an appropriate way, and they didn't use it properly. So that's why they got sued. But like, I don't know, the whole vibe of the show is great. And also Harvey, he's got mad himbo energy, and I need that. I need a Harvey himbo. So
Oh, we love Harvey.
oh, we love Harvey. We do.
One of the other recent popular TV shows, including witches, is American Horror Story Coven, which I saw years ago and I totally forget. But what did you think about that?
It's a masterpiece.
Oh, really?
I love it. That show did a very good job of kind of conceptualizing like what a modern witch could look like. Obviously they had to do it within only like a season of a TV show, so they couldn't go that in depth, but I really like how they sort of brought the European witches in conversation with the New Orleans voodoo magic, which was super cool. And the aesthetics were great, the storyline was awesome. It is a lot of badass female characters in it. It was scary, it was sexy, it was everything, and you can really see the power that these women have. And like, I was low-key scared of all the women on the show, but also low-key in love with them all at the end. And I mean, they brought Stevie Nicks in, so spoiler alert, Stevie Nicks makes an appearance, and that just sealed the deal for me. So if you haven't seen it, watch it. Highly would recommend. And I definitely, if I were to be one of the witches in the show, I'd definitely be Misty Day.
Yeah.
Just like living in the woods by myself with all my alligators.
With your alligators?
Yeah.
I forget that was in the show, but I'll take your word for it that there were alligators.
Alligators and Stevie Nicks. All you need.
The tagline of the season.
So the last bit of pop culture that I really, really like, and if you really want to kind of see what a modern witch could look like as well, is the 90s movie The Craft. It's really good at portraying witches, modern witchcraft, and how rituals can be done in sort of a modern sense. But it also is a good kind of storytelling about how, you know, what you put out into the universe will come back at you 3 times fold, and like realizing if you do have the like an agency and a power, using it for good is a big part of witchcraft. And you know, the whole "we are the weirdos that you need to worry about, mister" is one of my life philosophies as well. So yeah, The Craft. Recommend The Craft.
So Megan, we're hearing that sometimes in these shows or just historically there have been negative stereotypes of witches. And I was wondering if these negative stereotypes have impacted your life at all on a personal level.
Nope. So if anybody is like interested to kind of see the philosophy of the witch, maybe get a little bit of insight into some practices and start a witchy journey if it does call to you, a really, really good book that I enjoy so much and has helped me a lot in my spiritual journey is the book by Lisa Lister. It's called Witch Unleashed, Untamed, and Unapologetic. And it's written in a very awesome tongue-in-cheek way by a witch out in the UK, Lisa, and she talked about her personal journey with it. She's a really good guide to kind of start your journey, listen to the rules, and she really writes a great introduction into how to navigate a very complicated sort of path of the witchcraft, neo-pagan, new spirituality sort of trajectory. And she just has a very eloquent way of writing about it. And it came out recently, so it does apply to a modern context, which I also really love as well. And it's very empowering. I get very feministy after I read it. And the feminist fires are definitely ignited in that book. So if anybody is interested, you feel the call of the witch, or you think you're a witch yourself, I would recommend picking up that book.
Previously, you mentioned astrology, which is a really interesting subject to me, and I wanted to know if you want to talk about that a bit more.
Of course, I want to talk about astrology. I have like astrology constellations tattooed all over myself, so I'm very much a subscriber to it. Astrology is fun. I actually kind of started following it a bit ironically, and then as these things do, you kind of take it literally. It's like TikTok. You get on it to see what it's about, and then you just go down the rabbit hole and you don't know how to get out. Astrology is cool. It's like, I can understand why people may laugh at it because there is no scientific value for it. Or at least some people don't think so. Whereas I'd like to believe that there is a bit more of a truth to it. Astrology is a lot more complicated than people traditionally think. Like when they see your horoscope in the newspaper, they kind of some people like to laugh at that and think that there's no validity to it. But there's so many different facets of astrology that you have to take into account when using it properly, if you would say, I guess. A whole person is not just the one sign that people, popularly know. Like if you would look up your sign in a newspaper's horoscope, you'd be looking at your sun sign, whereas you actually have 11 signs, and different planets and different signs would represent sort of different ways in which your personality shows up. So if you were going to go into astrology, you would kind of need to you need to get your birth chart done. You can get that done real quick. CoStar is a great app. You can look at your friends' birth charts as well. You need to know the date you were born, the time of day you were born, and the location to get the full picture. And that's really, really complicated. You could probably do a whole episode on it on yourself. I'm not going to get into the chart too much. But if you were going to take like the big 3 important signs of the chart, you would have to look at your sun, moon, and your rising sign. Your sun sign is the sign that the sun was in when you were born. So that's the one that you would know like based on your birth date. Your moon sign is the sign that the moon was in when you were born, and that sort of reflects your innermost emotion. So if you were alone by yourself, most comfortable, no external influences whatsoever, that is the true sort of core of yourself. Your rising sign is, I don't want to say mask, but it's the appearance that you put out to the world, and it's what the world sees you as. Whereas the sun sign is your role, your core, and what you are, like your path in this life, essentially. And the only way to know those is if you get your birth chart done. So have you guys gotten your birth charts done?
I don't think so. I think I might have done it once on an app or something, but I can't remember the results. Yeah.
Mine's done. I've done it on CoStar.
Right. I actually know yours.
Yeah, you know mine better than I do.
Your sun is a Taurus, your rising is a Sagittarius, and your moon is a Taurus.
You have it memorized? That's impressive.
Maybe. I just know that, I guess. What's your sun sign, Jacqueline?
Yeah, I'm a Virgo.
Virgos! Oh, I love Virgos. Virgos are great. So, can I astrologically profile your sun sign?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Okay, so Virgos are in September. They're an earth sign, and they're very practical, organized, hardworking people. They can kind of be a bit of people pleasers, a little bit. Like they care for people a lot. Oh God, I sound like an astrology nerd. They are Virgos are actually the polar opposite to my sign, which makes us kind of compatible. We are, opposites attract type deal. So you're very pragmatic on this earth, practical people. You look at logic. Very studious people who take their work very seriously. My little brother is one, and he's it's quite obvious. And Rachel, you're a Taurus too. You're an earth sign too.
Yes, I am.
Tauruses are fun because they're very stubborn people.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I love you. It's fine. No, Tauruses are great because they're stubborn people, but they're also very caring, grounded. They give the best advice. They're, they kind of have this reputation to be not consumed with material things, but they like the nice things in life. And the way that they describe Tauruses is like a bull, but a bull smelling flowers.
A bull smelling flowers?
Yeah, a little bit intimidating, stubborn, powerful on the outside, but very chill and calm on the inside. And Virgos, their representation is of like the virgin woman, I guess. And they're also caretakers. They have a very maternal aspect to them. They're very practical. Like they're the mom that really pushes you to get stuff done and, be very hardworking, which is awesome. So great, two great signs. I love all the signs.
What about your sign? Tell us about yours.
Oh, me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Pisces, and it makes total sense as to why I'm telling you guys about your birth charts, because that's what Pisces do. Pisces are fun. If anybody were to be intuitive mediums, witches, psychics, they would be Pisces. Pisces are the end of the zodiac. So like the zodiac, if you were to kind of look at it as a whole, they kind of like to put it as like the life stages of a person. So Aries being the baby of the zodiac, Pisces are the wise old people. And they also say that Pisces are most likely souls that have been reincarnated multiple times, like they're old souls. I got Pisces 5 times in my chart, so I think I've been around here for maybe a little bit long. They're very dreamy people. They don't really exist in this reality, which is very true. I'm a space cadet and I'm never here ever. It's hard to get me to focus on stuff because I'm always daydreaming. They're also like the most sensitive sign in the zodiac. Yeah, so Pisces, they're very sensitive because they're just so in tune and connected to everything that's going around them. Like a lot of highly sensitive people sometimes are Pisces. But they are also the ones that are said to have kind of maybe connection to the spirit realm because they are the end of the zodiac, so the end of life. So they're actually represented as death in the life cycle, which is very interesting. Fun fact, Pisces aren't crybabies. Cancers are the crybaby zodiac. I'm sorry. No, they're not.
Is that a stereotype?
Yes.
That Pisces are crybabies?
Yes, because we just are so sensitive. But it's just because we are in tune to a lot of external energies. Like some examples of Pisces, like if a Pisces walks into a room and before they even got there, somebody insulted another person, they'll feel it immediately. And it's really great if you want to learn about astrology. Astrology TikTok is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I've heard of witch talk, but not astrology TikTok.
You can find a lot of astrology on witch talk as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they overlap. I'm wondering, are tarot cards a part of your practice?
Yes, very much so. I'd say that they're a huge part of my practice. I've been reading tarot for about 6 years. That practice was actually passed down to me from my aunt. She's been reading tarot cards for 20 plus years. And I was always very interested into it. I loved using it as a tool to kind of see what the bigger picture is, kind of clarify what's going on in my life, what energies are going on in my life. And it's really fun. Contrary to popular belief, tarot cards can sometimes be a lot to handle. Like the stereotype of tarot cards is like, oh, you're getting your future told. There's a tall, dark man coming into your future. But realistically, tarot is honestly telling you and bringing things into light that you already know. It's your subconscious kind of poking its way and making itself known. So I like to say tarot cards are calling me out on my BS a lot, and they have done that a lot. Tarot is pretty sacred to me. I treat it in a very sacred way. I like to have a clear space. I like to cleanse. I like to meditate, and I like to take it very seriously. Because it's a good tool to kind of see where you are in your life. And there are no bad tarot cards. Don't be scared of the death card because it says death. It's a great card. For anybody else who's listening, if you are interested in tarot, definitely do a lot of research and take the time to learn the ways it can be used in a positive way, but also take time to learn the ways it can be used in a negative way. If I were to give any advice to anybody who's getting to start tarot or, potentially get their tarot cards read, I use tarot in a very intimate way to kind of talk to a person and use it as a conversation. I generally try not to go to tarot cards. Like, I don't like to go to a tarot card reading in like a very, we'll just see what's going on, like this is floozy type deal. It's like, no, these are quite sacred. It's a quite sacred practice to a lot of witches. So if you're going to be getting it done, go in with a very open mind frame, a respectful mind frame, like kind of like the way you would go if a person decided to take you to their church. Treat it in a very respectful way that way. I do have a little anecdote, actually, cute little one. My aunt told me that she was doing a reading for a girl a couple years ago. And this girl was not being too respectful. She didn't like the answers my aunt was giving her. So she tried to shuffle those cards again and ask it in a different way. And the same cards actually came up for that reading as well.
Yeah, the ways that people usually talk about tarot these days are sort of like a game or just like a fun party trick. So it's interesting to learn that it really shouldn't be taken that way. At least it shouldn't be taken out of context that way. So thank you for telling us that. And I think that's the end of our show. So Meghan, thank you so much for coming on to Nearly Numinous with Jacqueline and I. We had a really good time. You gave us a lot of great information, and I learned a lot today. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences.
Thank you so much for having me on the show and letting me talk about it from a practitioner's point of view. It was a lot more intimidating than I thought, but I had a lot of fun with it. And if anybody is interested in this faith or, had some things that resonate with them, it's totally, I really hope that some of this stuff did resonate. And, there's a little witch in all of us, as a good quote from Practical Magic, if you want to watch it. And I fundamentally believe that's true. We all have our own inner magic, and witchcraft is just one way to find it.